I really feel like if each of us can focus on creating a workplace where we can be kind to one another and incredibly productive, then we begin to break the problems down into their component parts and we can solve them.
We're talking to Kim Scott. She's the author of Just Work, How to Root Out Bias, Prejudice and Bullying to Build a Kick-Ass Culture of Inclusivity. And she's also the author of Radical Candor, which is where I first heard of her. Be a kick-ass boss without losing your humanity. She's the co-founder of companies Just Work and Radical Candor. She was a CEO coach at Dropbox, Twitter, Qualtrics, other tech companies, and in general, just a really amazing person. Kim, thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed by me.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to chat with you and admire the work you do. So thank you.
I've got just a first starting off question. When I read Just Work, I ordered it as soon as I found out about it and your dedication. I read it and I was just enthralled. You can see that I've put a big...
Oh, wow.
I annotate. I think that's the key point there. Can you tell me a little bit about your thinking with that dedication?
I really feel like there are so many big problems, and it would be easy to get overwhelmed by them. And part of the reason why I focus on the workplace is that I really feel like if each of us can focus on creating a workplace where we can be kind to one another and incredibly productive, then we begin to break the problems down into their component parts and we can solve them. But I feel like there's some urgency.
My demographic is here in Australia and primarily in the Australian public service. People come to these roles because they want to make a difference. They want to serve the public good. I think the pressurized environment is creating a systemic difficulty for people to bring their best self forward. And under stress, people tend to revert back to habitual maladaptive behaviors. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came up with those three really important ways to look at bias, prejudice, and bullying, and then mitigations that you can put in place?
Yeah. So I think very often what happens, as I was thinking through my own career, I wrote a book called Radical Candor, but so often when I would experience things that felt just wrong to me, I hardly knew how to identify what was wrong. And so I started writing stories from my own career as a woman in the workplace about the things that happened to me, but also talking to other people, a wide variety of people. And I really realized that part of the issue is that we conflate three things that are three separate things. I'm a big believer that if you're facing a hard problem, like break it down into its component parts and take each in turn. And so to me, bias is sort of not meaning it. Bias is like a brain hiccup. Maybe you're reflecting some kind of stereotype that's in the ether, but if you stop to think about it, you don't believe that stereotype is true. Whereas prejudice, you do believe it's true. It's actually a conscious belief. Bias is often unconscious. Prejudice is quite conscious. And then you have bullying, which is just being mean. And to me, it was very helpful to think about how to respond, because if it's bias, I think it's useful to respond with an I statement where you're sort of inviting someone in to understand a situation from your perspective. I don't think that you meant that the way it sounded, or I don't think you're going to take me seriously if you're referring to me as honey. So it's not very confrontational. It's sort of invitational. With an I statement, you're kind of holding up a mirror. And when the other person notices, then they, get the spinach out of their teeth or whatever. So if it's prejudice, you really need an it statement. And an it statement can appeal to the law, it can appeal to an HR policy, or it can appeal to common sense. So for example, a friend of mine was in a hiring meeting and everyone agreed that the most qualified candidate was a Black woman who had worn her hair out naturally. And the hiring manager said, "Oh, I'm not going to extend the most qualified candidate an offer because I can't put that hair in front of the business." I know, it's shocking, and this was at a company you would recognize. And so an it statement could appeal to the law. It is illegal, which it was in that state in the US, not to hire someone because of their hair. Or it could appeal to an HR policy. It is an HR violation not to hire someone because of their hair, which it was at that company. Or it can simply appeal to common sense. It is ridiculous not to hire the most qualified candidate because of their hair. And so that's an it statement. And that to me is very useful. But sometimes, it's bullying. If it's bullying, I think you need a you statement. The you statement is going to work better. You can't talk to me like that, or you need to stop now, or what's going on for you here? Why are you doing this? With a you statement, unlike an I statement, which invites someone in, a you statement kind of pushes them away, but it also puts the speaker in an active stance. You're not submitting to the other person. You're active.
Exactly. How do folks get a hold of you to give you feedback on Just Work? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
You can follow me. I'm at Kimball Scott and at Just Work Book.
I want to thank you so much, Kim Scott, for a wonderful conversation. It was very enlightening for me. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Great conversation. And thank you for the work you're doing, both you and all the people who you work with.
Thanks for that. If you'd like to learn more, contact me. info@insightfulpath.com.au or James Samana on LinkedIn. I look forward to talking with you. Bye.
Yeah, I like what I see there. Whoa, did that just happen?